Welcome, everyone, to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and we're producing this episode for the Forbes.com, where I'm a contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing. We have a really remarkable guest today with us. I'm so excited. Just an issue that really I value and care about, and also a person I have great respect for. We have with us Jonathan Mintz, the CEO and founder of Citi Financial Empowerment Fund. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Devin.
Well, you are working, among other things, but one of your big primary focuses is on helping people access the mainstream traditional financial services that many at the lower socioeconomic rungs of our society have not been connected to. Tell us a little bit about why that matters.
Well, it's a really important issue, as you say, and it's unfortunately a really huge issue. There are well over 10 million Americans that do not have access to a mainstream basic banking account. And while that may not at first blush seem like a huge problem, it is really a major stumbling block between their ability to survive, their ability to stabilize their finances, let alone to be thinking about and building their futures for their families. I've seen studies that have said that the costs associated with being outside of the mainstream banking system can add up to as much as $40,000 over a worker's lifetime. And if you think about it, you get a paycheck, and then what are you going to do with it? You have to pay somebody to cash it. That costs money. Then you have to pay somebody to convert that money into some form that you can use, because you don't want to be walking around with cash. How are you going to pay your bills? And if you put it on a spending card, then you also are going to pay every time you spend it. So it's really this ironically very expensive way of being outside of the mainstream system that you and I are in and transact for free.
Yeah, and every time they've got to pay someone with a check, they've got to go pay someone for a money order or some other similar transaction, right? So it really is just a compounding mess.
That's right, and of course the irony is they're the people who can least afford it. And so all of the efforts that cities like New York, where I worked, and so many of our other partner cities through the fund are investing in trying to stabilize these people's lives, helping them with a myriad of issues. And they're building these investments in some ways on very loose dirt, because these people's finances really aren't stable enough in many cases to consume and benefit from those services. And so that's why increasingly cities have really started to pay attention to this issue, whereas in the past this has really been something more left to the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, spending $1,000 a year on financial services may not sound like a lot to most people who will be watching this, but if you don't have $1,000 in a bank account, that $1,000 starts to sound like a lot of money, doesn't it?
One of the other ironies, I think, of this issue, to your point about it not being what people think right off the bat, is a lot of times when people look at those who are outside of the mainstream banking system, they often say that the antidote is education. These people just need to understand better how the system works. That, in my experience, is really rarely the reason that people are in trouble, and rarely the circumstance that they find themselves in. In fact, these people are paying a whole lot more attention to their finances in any given day or week, I would imagine, than you or I do, because they need to know, when is a check going to clear, when is this bill going to come due, when is the next amount of income coming in, how much is it going to be. That kind of balancing, when you really get down to it, is quite complicated and quite time-consuming. I've heard people describe it as a part-time job, with all the time and energy that's spent navigating once you're outside the system.
Sure. So what is the solution? What is the CFE Fund doing to solve this problem?
The solution. So here we are. We'll announce the solution. I think, I often say that the massive scale of this problem is also the key to its solution. And it's part of the reason that cities are so connected to this issue, because cities have to address problems at scale. It is their public mandate, and cities are uniquely capable of addressing problems at scale because they have programs and often funding streams that are already serving or touching the people that we're trying to bank. So we believe, and a lot of our efforts through an initiative we call Bank On 2.0, we really believe that the right way to approach this problem at scale is to harness those public programs, to harness those public funding streams, and leverage them into banking opportunities. So here's one example, so that we're not too wonky here on the internet. Most cities have a program called Summer Youth Employment, and this takes low-income young adults and gives them a summer job. Well, they are usually paying these people through a check, sometimes through a gift card or spending card. What we're doing is we're working with 5 cities currently, and hope to expand that in the next summer, to help them re-envision their program so that at the moment that they are signing people into the Summer Youth Employment Program, they are connecting to direct deposit banking systems. They're going out and negotiating with financial institutions to get appropriate accounts for this population, using a little bit of behavioral economic nudges and saying to people when they sign up, you have to get your pay through direct deposit. If you don't have an account, no problem. Here are 6 of them that we went out and got for you. Choose one, and let's sign you up right now. Using those onboarding opportunities, using that stream of dollars that people are coming to you to get, I think is really the pathway to scale, and what increasingly mayoral administrations across the country are investing in.
Do municipalities have streams of income or streams of cash that they're dispersing to residents who aren't employees, or is this only an option for employees?
No, all the time. I wasn't talking about employees. Employees is a whole other issue. I mean, I know when I worked for the City of New York, we were the largest employer. We had 330,000 people who worked in the administration. But no, but I'm talking about people who are in public programs. I'm talking about young adults in summer youth employment programs. I'm talking about foster care kids. I'm talking about rental assistance. All sorts of places where, as I say, cities are already touching people with social service dollars and social service programs. And I think that harnessing those moments, because cities control those flows of dollars, cities control the program registration protocols, is a way to say, when we touch you with money, we're going to use that opportunity to get you appropriately banked.
I've sometimes had the impression that banks don't want these customers. How are you dealing with that, or is that just a false notion that I have in my head?
It's not a false notion, but I'm hoping it's quickly becoming an outdated notion. I think it is true that up until maybe a few years ago, most large financial institutions were not hunting down lower income customers. I think that they saw them as particularly expensive because they thought they were more likely to consume resources in the branch, which could be complicated, more likely to take up more time with operators on the telephone. But increasingly, financial institutions are seeing that there is a scale to these populations. When we in New York, for example, say to potential financial institution partners, we have 35,000 young adults coming through this program this summer, then individually those might not be the most desirable of clients, but 35,000 of them, you have their attention.
That is an exciting innovation and a great way to attack this problem, because by giving it scale, you give it meaning and you get these partners. And you've really developed some great partnerships. Tell us a little bit about some of the partnerships you've developed with Citibank, Bloomberg, JP Morgan Chase. Tell us a little bit about how that's come together and what you're doing in each case.
Well, we've been really fortunate to have a lot of philanthropic and corporate support for these efforts. I think part of the reason for that support is that we are talking about 2 things that matter. One is a scaled approach to solving a huge problem. And the second, which we've talked a little bit about, and the second is that we're talking about infrastructural solutions. Not PR opportunities, not one-shot press conferences, but really talking about re-envisioning the way that programs are structured, the way that money flows, and I think that that kind of large-scale infrastructural solution is about as good as it gets when it comes to bang for the buck on philanthropic investments. And so we've been really fortunate. Bloomberg Philanthropies has been wonderful in helping us to replicate our one-on-one financial counseling centers across, at this point, more than a dozen cities. Citibank is funding the Summer Youth Employment re-envisioning program that I talked about. It's called Summer Jobs Connect. Chase is underwriting our Bank on 2.0 initiative, helping us to really marshal a national platform to help those local partnerships. Lots of other financial institutions and others have been great. I probably should name them all, but we'd be here the rest of the afternoon.
What is it? I want to flip the problem question on its head, if we can, just a little bit, because I think as we think about the problem, it isn't just an absence of fees. I think the benefits go beyond that. Help us understand what unbanked or underbanked people get in their lives as they get into the mainstream financial system. What are the benefits that they get beyond saying, I've got a checking account?
Well, yeah, I think that there are several immediate benefits, and then there are some long-term benefits. The immediate benefits is that they start saving money. They literally don't have to pay the kind of fees that we just walked through a few minutes ago, and that makes a really huge difference. It means that they are able to make the dollars that they're working so hard to get and that they need so much go farther. It means that they're able to do things like grow their businesses. It also is often a platform for people to begin saving. This is another fallacy that we discovered in our work early on in New York, this idea that people with very low incomes can't save and won't save and they're in debt and you should worry about their debt first. That is anything but our experience. People with low incomes are very aware of the needs of their family, the need for a cushion to absorb shocks, and aspirations for their children like the rest of us have. And so thinking about opportunities to save, it's much easier to save if you can directly move something from one account to another than it is to have cash in your pocket that your brother-in-law needs to borrow. So the savings component as well as the cost savings, I think, is really huge. And then you also, when you're in, the final point is when you're in the financial mainstream, you start to develop the kind of credit history that allows you to start to grow your life. If you are looking to buy a home, buy a car, get student loans, you really need that kind of engagement with the system in order to show the system, depending on which where you're trying to borrow money, that you know how to do it and that you can do it responsibly.
Well, it is just a tremendous benefit, and I'm sure there are people from other municipalities who are wondering how they get to be part of your program. Right now you're operating in just 4 or 5 cities, is that right?
Well, no, we're actually working in dozens of cities with different programs. The Summer Youth Employment Program I mentioned is 5 cities. The Financial Empowerment Centers, the one-on-one professional counseling, we're now up to, I think there are 13 cities that are doing it. Bank on cities, there are almost 100 of them across the country. That's my mother calling us.
She must be watching live and is very excited.
She loves the show. So we're working with mayoral administrations and those who want to partner with them all the time at the CFE Fund, and anyone watching this who wants to figure out how to engage their mayor in this work, give us a call. We're happy to help.
Well, fantastic. Now, let's make that a little bit more practical. How do people reach out and contact you? What's the best way to reach you or your organization?
Well, you could call my mother. She has immediate access to me, as you can see. Our website is CFE Fund, www.cfefund.org, and you can contact us through there. You can get a better sense of the range of our programs. That's my mother. She's really happy that I'm talking about her now. Sorry about that. So much for turning off the ringer. But I think going to our website at cfefund.org is really the right way to reach us. And people contact us all the time, including, and I love this, new elected officials who are putting together their platforms running for office that are increasingly including this financial stability, financial capability issue in their platforms. I think that's very exciting.
Well, fantastic. I really, Jonathan, really appreciate you taking the time, and I congratulate you on the good work you're doing and wish you every success in expanding that the success of your program.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Let's do some good.